In this video, I'm going to show you how I use the Crayola Supertips on RJ Hampson's Night Garden coloring book. This is the 100 set I have. Look at all the colors. Originally, I wasn't planning to film this video because this was the first time I used the Crayola Supertips on a coloring book. I wasn't sure that if I could get the result I want. But halfway through the coloring process, I like it more than I expected. So I decided to film it and share my process with you guys. So as you can see, I have already done the flowers around it. My idea was started from the edges, so if it didn't work out, it would be easier to fix. Since the Crayola Supertips, they are water-based marker, it's harder to lay down even color on the surface. But compared to the Artex alcohol marker I have, these don't spread as much as those alcohol markers. At this point of my coloring, I was quite happy with the result. Most of the colors look pretty even on paper, and I slowly figured out how to keep it consistent. I noticed that if I go over the surface multiple times, and as long as the ink stays wet on paper, it's not streaky. When I color with Supertips markers, the pen tip was barely touching the paper. The reason for that was, when the paper was wet, it's easy to damage the texture of the paper, so I had to use really light touch to make sure the pen tip didn't accidentally scratch the paper. I pay attention as it went. If I see certain spots needed more inks that look lighter, I just went over it again before the whole area was dry. Just to be aware that if you go over the same area multiple times with this marker pen, the color will look darker. So it's better to start with a lighter color so that you get that good base color to work with later on with color pencils. The marker pen tip of this Crayola Supertips is great for small areas, but when you color a bigger area like what I'm doing here, you do need to change the angle of the pen so that you get a bigger surface to work with and are able to color the whole area without it dry out before you finish. When I'm editing this video and looking back, I do feel like I could have chosen lighter color so that I can have a lighter middle tone color to work with later on to add highlight and shadow. Unfortunately, even with this 100 set, my option was limited. Most of the color are more vibrant and darker, so I could only work with what I have. Halfway through my marker pen coloring, I realized that because how vibrant these colors were, if I used too many different colors, it would look chaotic. So I ended up decided to stick with some similar colors so that they could look more cohesive. I'm more of a go with the flow kind of colorist. I didn't swatch the colors before I started this. So if you want to have more in control with the colors you use, you may want to swatch them first, knowing your options so that you can make better decisions. You probably can tell that I didn't think much when I colored the flowers and the plants around the butterfly. When it comes to the butterfly, I decided to stick with orange and teal color palette. It is one of the most popular color combinations, and I do like how it looks here. They are vibrant, contrast with each other, and it does make the butterfly pop out of the page more. One thing I learned from color this butterfly was, since I went through it multiple times, have multiple layers on each area, it was kind of wet. So I will avoid color areas that are next to each other so that they don't bleed through the line. Also, if you are taking your time and put down a lot of inks on the paper, you do want to put something behind the page like copy papers so that the bleed through doesn't contaminate the other page. Here I was about to done with this butterfly. To contrast with the orange salmon colors, I chose a darker teal green color here to contrast with the brighter, warmer color tone. I was really surprised by how easy to use the Crayola Supertips marker pen. I think I finished the base layer for this page within a day, which was the record fast for my personal coloring experience. I also love that how affordable they are. I think I bought the 100 set less than $20. You can easily find a good deal on Amazon or Walmart. And they are really easy to travel with too. If I want to color when I travel, I would definitely consider bringing my Supertips marker pens. They are easy to use, not messy, and if I lost it on my trip, it's easy to find the replacement. Even though I had success making the colors look even on this paper, I still wouldn't use it on the background. With a big area like the background, I think it would be too much for this kind of marker pens. I don't think it's possible for me to make the color looks even if I use it on the background. From my last coloring video, some of you mentioned about learning from me, but I have to confess, I'm not a professional colorist. Coloring is actually quite new to me other than when I did it when I was a kid. I simply love sharing how I did it, my thoughts and my process. I guess in some way you can learn from my mistakes. I think it's better to learn from other people's mistakes than have to do it yourself. And if you find this video helpful, I'm glad because I do love having conversation with you all in the comment area. Back to talking about this coloring page. At this point, I was about to finish. Here I was working on the smaller butterflies around the main butterfly. I used a similar color combination for the smaller butterflies, except I didn't use the darker teal or brown color because I didn't want the smaller butterflies to be too contrast and competing with the main subject. Usually when I draw or paint, I stick with the same thing that I'm familiar with. But with coloring books, it allows me to explore and try things, go out of my comfort zone, and that definitely helps me grow and learn as an artist. Once we are done with the marker pens, I'm going to look at it as a whole and look through it and figure out where to go from here. So this is how it looks after I done using the Crayola Supertips. The process went pretty fast. I'm quite happy with using the Crayola Supertips for the base layers. So now the base layer is done, I want to take a look to figure out the direction I want to take from here. Because with the limitation of the Crayola Supertips, most of the colors are overly vibrant. So if that's not the style you want to do, maybe the Crayola Supertips, they are not the best marker for your work. So by looking at this page, I do think that most of these colors go together pretty well. Halfway through the coloring process, I did limit the colors I use. Mostly here are the warm orange to maybe slightly pinkish tone that kind of coordinate with the flowers around it. To contrast it, I used dark teal color and some green colors. Because the green and the dark teal colors are quite different, so I will have to figure out how I layer color pencil on top to make the colors look cohesive overall on this page. For this Crayola Supertips 100 set, I don't have too many muted green colors, so this color is a bit too vibrant for me, and I like the stem color better, so I'll have to figure out how I use color pencil to blend these two colors together. So if you like to color your page without too much planning and want to have good result, maybe you can limit the numbers of color you use. That way your page would look more cohesive. Otherwise, you can also look up some color chart to help you figure out the color palettes you want. Next, I continue to work with color pencil to layer on top. First, I use a reddish brown to create the shadow for the flower. The color pencil I use is the Prismacolor Premier color pencils. You probably can use any color pencils you want to layer on a lighter color. But if you want to add highlight or lighter color on a darker tone, then you may want to use color pencil with higher pigmentation. Prismacolor color pencil is a pretty good option for going over a darker tone, but even with Prismacolor, there is a limitation of how much a color pencil can do. After I created the shadow with the darker reddish brown, I continue to use a lighter color like the deep red to blend out the shadow, and I usually use 3 to 4 colors to create a smooth gradation. Other than adding darker tones in the middle of the flowers, I also added a hint of darker colors around the edges of the flower petals. Visually, that helps to hold the flower together and making the colors on the flower look more cohesive. After added shadow in the middle of the flower and on the edges, I continue to use a lighter pinkish tone that looks similar to the base color to blend out the shadow. I do love using Prismacolor color pencil for this purpose. The pencil is so soft and creamy, and it smooths out the texture and the surface, and it makes the whole thing look more refined and polished. Especially when you color something like the flowers, the smoothness just makes the whole thing look more sweet and dreamy. Now I'm going to repeat the same process on the flower above it. With the camera zooming closer, you can see that when I lay down the shadow, you do see some texture from the color pencil. The more pencils you lay down on paper, the surface will be smoother. That's the reason when I was done with the shadow, I will use the lighter pink color to blend out everything, smooth out everything, even burnish it to get a smooth surface. It is a simple process and technique, but you do want to color it lightly, using light pressure with your color pencil, because you don't want to burnish the page before you are done with the shadow. I also tend to move my pencil in a circular motion. That tends to give me a better result, smoother surface. With this close-up, you can really see how this light color pencil smooth out everything. Since Prismacolor color pencil can be quite opaque, when I color this page, I noticed that the lighter color was so opaque that it started to cover up the black lines. I ended up using a darker color to go over the black line so that the black lines they don't look faded. Since the flower on the right side was kind of just mirroring, so I'm not going to make you sit through the same thing. I don't think that's the best use for your time, so I'm going to cut through to the next part. As you can see, I basically use the same color, same technique, repeating the same process. But if you think it's beneficial to see this technique multiple times, and I should keep the footage, please let me know in the comment area. And here I was finishing all the bigger flowers on both sides. Next, I continue to color the smaller flowers. In a way, it was similar to the bigger flowers, but I used less colors, and I skipped the darker tone so that the smaller flower they don't look too contrast. When I color, I try to identify the hierarchy of the subjects, identifying which one should stand up more and which one should be in the supporting role. In some way, you can make something stand up more by using bright color or stronger contrast. For this bright teal green color, first I added yellow for the highlight, and then I used a grass green, true green to layer it on top to tone down the vibrancy. Before I blended everything together, I decided to use a darker green to create a little bit of shadow. Finish it off, I used a goldenrod color to layer on top to tone down the bright teal green color to get it closer to the muted green color on the stem. I also used the true green color on the stem so that the color would look more cohesive in general. And here I repeated the same process again. By repeating it the second time, I was able to adjust the color and have a smoother blend. Sometimes it's helpful to repeat the same process because you learn what's worked and what's not, so that you can adjust and improve from it. When I did the Crayola Supertips layer, I was worried that the bright teal green color would be too much, but I'm glad it turned out better than I expected. I think I do like how they blend together, from the brighter green to the more muted green on the stem. I believe this leaf lighting underneath the berry, they are called sepal, right? Since English is not my first language, if I didn't say it correctly, I apologize. Then I continue to work on those elongated leaves. I used the same color combination, repeated the same process, started with the yellow for the highlight, and then darker green for the shadow, and then use a goldenrod color to blend everything together. To smooth out the texture, I layer a true green color on top, just like how I did the flowers. To keep things looking cohesive, after I was done with these elongated leaves, I used the same color combination on the stem. To use a dark green to add a little shadow, and then use a lighter true green color to smooth out everything. It was quite simple and straightforward. With this page, there were many repetitive parts. For example, it had a different set of leaves beside the flowers. Since these are all grouped together, I didn't want to use different color for this set of leaves. Sometimes a page can look messy if I add too many colors. I know I have the tendency to overdo things. By the way, I appreciate the compliments you all gave me on my last video. The way I color is pretty simple and straightforward. I feel like many of you could have done 10 times better than me. So I just kept going, and after I finished the leaf on the left, I just repeated the whole same process for the grouping on the right side. I do consider this page to be quite simple. Comparing to those in Kirby Rosen's book and the mythographic series, those are way complicated. I hope I have the courage to challenge those books someday. Also, I have used Prismacolor color pencils in my videos twice now. Maybe for next video, I will try using different color pencils. If you have suggestions, feel free to let me know. For the berries, I want them to stand out a little bit more, so I use a neon pink color for the highlight, And then I use violet blue for the shadow. To blend together the highlights and the shadow, I use a mulberry color, which was similar to the base layer. I don't usually use neon color in my coloring book, but after trying it on this page, that had changed my mind. I'm considering using more neon color for the highlight in the future. I have a set of Brookfield neon color pencil. I think it's time to use them in my coloring book. For a smaller butterfly, I used yellow to brighten up the butterfly's body, which was too dark with the brown. After I finished working on the body, I used a darker brown to create some shadow for the butterfly wing. I didn't want to do anything too complicated since they are not the main focus for this page. After added the shadow, I did use red and darker orange color to blend out the shadow to make everything look smoother. Even though I say I didn't want to make it too complicated for this small butterfly, but I did keep going back, adding more shadow and highlight to make the butterfly look more interesting. The butterfly looks so pretty, I just couldn't help myself. Often, I just want to chill and relax with my coloring books, but then sometimes the perfectionist inside me kicked in, and then I just kept going, wanting everything to look as perfect as possible. I really need to remind myself to relax, have fun, and let go. Finally, it was time to work on the main butterfly. Right away, I wanted to work on the body of the butterfly. The brown was really too dark for my liking, so I used some lighter colors to add some highlight, hoping it wouldn't look so flat with the dark brown color. I really should have used a lighter color to start with. It's always easier to make a color look darker than brighten a color afterwards. For example, the second part of the body, that was a better middle tone for me to work with. It was easier to add highlight and shadow to create the effect I wanted. But I try not to make it look too realistic, otherwise it would creep me out. I like butterfly, but I'm someone who cannot handle caterpillar. After I adjusted the colors of the body, it definitely looked more cohesive and matches better with the butterfly wings. For the butterfly wing, I used a darker green to add some shadow near the body, and then to contrast with the brighter orange color, I continue to use a dark green to add contrast around the orange color butterfly pattern to make them stand out more. By adding shadows and gradients, you can add more depth to a flat lay color. To push the contrast further, I use lighter yellow color and orange color to add highlight to the pattern. To create the smooth gradient, I use light pressure with my color pencil. Slowly build up more layers, allow the color to slowly blend together. I think blending colors smoothly is particularly important for a page like this. With butterflies and flowers, it's supposed to be soft and dreamy, so you definitely want your colors look smooth on your coloring page. Then I continue to adding more shadow and highlights to the butterfly wing to continue to create more contrast. Even though this is a top view flat lay of the butterfly, I still don't want the butterfly to look too flat. I even added a little bit of translucent effect to this part. I wanted to color it slightly different from the top part so that it doesn't look so boring. I guess it's all about creating the contrast and variation within a limit. And then I just use the similar technique for other smaller details and finish up the butterfly. So here is the final look of this page. I quite love how it turned out. I absolutely didn't think I could finish up a page using a Crayola Supertips for the base layer. I did consider using Lengua gel pen to create some sparkly highlight for this page, but I didn't have the courage to do it. Since I don't have too much experience with Lengua gel pen, I really don't want to damage this page. In my future coloring videos, I do want to find a page that I can practice on the background. Even though I was able to finish this page pretty fast with the Crayola Supertips, but editing the video was another story. I probably spent more time in editing than coloring. I hope you enjoyed this video and thanks again for watching. Bye.